It'll be interesting to see what the SpaceX IPO does to Rocket Lab post, settlement. And it seems like SpaceX is getting oversubscribed. There's a good probability that there will be a pop of some kind. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming weeks and months for the SpaceX price point, though. Like, where does it settle? Does it
Right.
settle at 1.5 trillion, 2 trillion, 3 trillion? Like, all of those things are possibilities. Even 1 trillion is a possibility if you go out a few months when the employee lockup period uh,
Yes.
gets removed. So, uh, you know, this will be a very, very fascinating company to watch. One of the most fascinating parts about this company is that one of the things that has excited people the most, these two deals between Anthropic and Google that are now worth over $2.1 billion per month of revenue, or about 4 billion dollars of revenue annualized, is worth more than all of SpaceX's other businesses combined. Their Starlink business, their launch business with the Falcon 9, their X or Twitter business, XAI, Grok subscriptions, all of it combined is sort of like smaller than these two deals that they literally made in the last 60 days that are, in Elon's words, temporary deals. So these temporary deals have essentially put SpaceX on track to be double their sort of annual revenue pace, and that's what's gotten people very excited for this company. And it has nothing to do with their sort of core business. The only reason they even have this excess data center capacity is because Grok and XAI have not done very well, and they don't have the use for the this data center facilities themselves, so they're renting it out to other people who Elon used to criticize as the hyperwoke who are trying to destroy civilization, and he wanted to balance them out with Grok. So now he's
You mean
helping them
help them
out,
out?
but
Right.
so the irony of all of this is super fascinating to me. And yeah, I'm like, again, I still would not touch SpaceX personally with a 10-foot pole, but I know people are hyper excited about this IPO, and there's probably going to be a floodgate of people who are uh, going to be opening brokerage accounts just so that they can buy SpaceX, right? Because it's
Right.
an exciting company.
Yeah. And it's not just Elon saying this deal is temporary. Google is also saying it. So the actual terms are from October 2026 is when it starts to June 2029. But it's really Google's claiming it's just a bridge as they build out their own capacity. So this is not a
Right.
long-term deal. But the numbers are crazy. They're basically paying SpaceX almost $1 billion a month
Yeah.
to access. They didn't specifically say, but the estimate is around 100 megawatts of power. So
That does not seem like much. One thing that's kind of interesting about this is that Google owns a pretty large chunk of SpaceX. Something like 10% of SpaceX is owned by Google. I mean, my number might be off there. So they have they have a massive incentive. Actually, it's not 10%. I might be remembering it as 10 billion a while back. So
sure.
that 10 billion may have grown to significantly larger. But in any case, they also have a massive incentive to make sure that SpaceX's IPO is a success. So, they might be looking out for their own interests a little bit too. So I don't know what's going on here. Some of it I just don't like. And then this new announcement with the AI one satellite that SpaceX is proposing as the data center of the future was super fascinating because this is a satellite that would provide essentially 120 kilowatts of power through solar arrays and cooling for potentially running, NVIDIA chips or somebody's AI chips in space. And that is targeted at hopefully late 2027 Elon time. So who knows what that means? That could mean 2030, 2035. All of those are possibilities. But 120 kilowatts of power is roughly half of what a typical data center, modern data center has in a single rack. So, and a full-on data center has about 4,000 racks. So putting things in perspective, you're talking about 1/8,000th of a data center in one of those satellites. So you would need roughly 8,000 of those satellites in order to get the equivalent of one gigawatt data center, which is what everybody's building these days. So, yeah, puts things in perspective a little bit.
Absolutely. It's not, these aren't going to happen overnight. I mean, it's going to take a very long, you're going to need a lot of rockets,
right?
Or one very large rocket, depending on how you look at it.
Starship is the largest rocket ever built, and you would need 100 of those launches.
Right.
If each launch could take 80 of these satellites, which is very optimistic, but assuming it could, that's extremely optimistic, and you would need 100 of them to build one data center. 100
and that's
launches.
not taking into account the price of how much does it cost to put 100 starships, to launch 100 starships.
Right. So I was actually doing a little bit of rough math. Is that a Falcon 9 currently costs about $60 million, or that's what they sell them for roughly. If Starship, which carries significantly greater load, almost 10 times more load than a Falcon 9, goes for $100 million, which would be a pretty substantial reduction in cost on a per kilogram basis. Something like an 80% reduction in cost. That would be an incredible achievement. But 100 launches times $100 million per launch, that's $10 billion in just launch costs alone. But there is the benefit that you get free solar. You have to pay for the solar arrays. So, there's like a huge amount of costs that are involved in building these satellites, AI data centers in space. But the benefit is that, like you get some redundancies, data centers that cannot be touched. Essentially, they're not on land. So there's reason to be willing to pay more for some capacity in space, right? For backup purposes,
Sure.
But it is not that. It's definitely, even in the most optimistic cases right now, at least in the next, let's say, 4 or 5 years, in the foreseeable future, in the most optimistic cases, it does not seem very viable as a cost alternative to land-based data centers.
Right. Yeah. The pros don't seem to outweigh the cons, at least for now.
Right.
Okay.
Mainly on the financial side of things, but there would be additional pros, like they would be untouchable, right? Like if you needed a data center for security purposes that, like it's doing top secret stuff that you want it to function no matter what, even if there's a nuclear war on the ground, that thing is still going to function. So there's that as well.